Do you understand? I'm no ordinary woman. My dreams come true.
Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with the juice to get you through the long night. So, the long night is almost over. Literally, we have less than 90 days before Game of Thrones season 8 is back. And I want to talk about war, like legit war. More specifically, the Battle for Dawn. So, one of the entire themes of Game of Thrones is that people of Westeros and Essos are focusing on gaining power, bickering and arguing. They're playing political chess, aka the Game of Thrones. They're separating themselves from people they feel they're better than, when everyone should be putting their differences aside and standing together against the only one enemy that matters. Now, that's the grand scheme of things. But other things, themes, or storytelling mechanisms are present in the story. One of the main things that presents itself all the time, and I talk about all the time, is history repeating. I talked about history repeating and characters of the present story being like characters from the actual pages of the histories of Westeros and Essos. For example, Daenerys' conquest being like Aegon's conquest, and not just because she came from the east and she had 3 dragons and they took flight from Dragonstone and she made her military plans from the same painted table as Aegon the Conqueror. Like, it mirrors his conquest even more. Like, there are details in there that are almost exactly the same. There are likely more than 100 times in this story that history repeats, or a character is similar to another character from histories of Westeros and Essos. And for the sake of time, I won't go through all of them in this video because then it would be like 2 hours long and y'all got shit to do. So there are multiple quotes in the books that point to this theme of history repeating. It's breadcrumbs left by George R.R. Martin that is leading us as readers to look deeper into the story. So because history repeats, I wanted to talk about the most famous wars in the history of Westeros. This is important because this can help show us the dynamic of the War for Dawn. Before the Dragonstone teaser from season 8 came out, I was thinking that the War for Dawn has to take place in the Riverlands. I said it in multiple videos, but when the teaser came out, while it could mean nothing, Ice and Fire seemed to meet on the Trident of the Riverlands. Most people think that the big battle will take place at Winterfell. While I do think there may be a big battle in the north outside of Winterfell, I do not think that the Night King will be defeated in the north. I think he will be defeated in the Riverlands. The show may go a totally different direction and make Winterfell or King's Landing like the end all be all, but the books point to the Riverlands, and the teaser for season 8 also points to the Riverlands. So let me explain. The first clue I want to discuss is a dream that Daenerys has in A Storm of Swords. That night, she dreamt that she was Rhaegar, riding to the Trident, but she was mounted on a dragon, not a horse. When she saw the usurper's rebel host across the river, they were armored all in ice. But she bathed them in dragon fire, and they melted away like dew and turned the Trident into a torrent. So there are multiple things going on here. So she dreams that she is Rhaegar and she's mounted on a dragon flying to the Trident. The rebel host across the river is armored in ice. Who else is armored in ice other than the White Walkers? So that's her dream. Now, we know for a fact that dreams mean things in A Song of Ice and Fire. And Daenerys' dreams are indeed prophetic. Like, she probably has the most prophetic dreams, like, out of all of the characters. She dreams the entire instruction manual for birthing dragons. Like, all of that came to her in a dream. Now, what's even more symbolic about this dream is what's going on in her real world when she dreams this dream. Daenerys is actually asleep on her ship, the Balerion, outside of Astapor. Daenerys dreams this right before she literally burns the masters of Astapor and liberates thousands of slaves. So essentially, that is what she would be doing if she burned the others armored in ice. She would burn the masters and it would liberate the slaves. So this dream, however, points to this battle happening on the Trident. But what does history have to say? Well, let's take a look. If you look back into the past or the overall story as a whole, what are some of the most famous battles or wars ever fought in Westeros? There's the Dance of Dragons, Aegon's Conquest, Robert's Rebellion, the War of Five Kings. If you go back even further, you have the invasion of the Andals or the first men battling the Children of the Forest in the Dawn Age. The one thing most of these wars have in common is they were decided in the Riverlands. Let's start with the first one. The Dance of Dragons. The Dance of Dragons was a Targaryen civil war. It was fought between brother and sister, both vowing for the throne. The dance had many different battles and many different factors that led to the outcome. There were battles all over Westeros, from Duskendale to the Honeywine, Harrenhal to Storm's End. But Rhaenyra lost that war when she lost her husband and military strategist Daemon Targaryen. Aemon One-Eye and his dragon Vhagar battled Daemon and his dragon Caraxes above the God's Eye in the Riverlands. Dragon fought dragon. Daemon, who didn't fasten his riding straps, leapt from Caraxes with Dark Sister in hand and stuck the Valyrian steel sword through the good eye of Aemon Targaryen. And they both died, and their dragons died too. This was the deciding factor to the end of Queen Rhaenyra's reign. Now, let's look at Aegon's Conquest. Where was it decided? In the Riverlands. Yes, there were battles in the Crownlands and the Stormlands. The most memorable parts of Aegon's conquest was when Aegon burned Harrenhal. And also what really solidified Aegon's conquest happened on the Trident. It's when the King in the North rode down to the Trident and bent his knee to Aegon the Conqueror. The deciding factor was in the Riverlands. Then we have Robert's Rebellion. Robert's Rebellion, while yes, of course, there was battles at Summerhall, Ashford, Galltown, Storm's End was under siege, but the deciding factor of Robert's Rebellion was fought on the Trident between Robert Baratheon and Rhaegar Targaryen, and the war was won in the Riverlands. The match that lit the war started in the Riverlands as well at the tourney of Harrenhal. But let's look at the War of Five Kings. There were battles all over Westeros. Tyrion lit Blackwater Bay on fire, Shadow Baby killed Renly in Storm's End, but the thickest fighting was fought in the Riverlands. The Whispering Woods, the Green Fork, Mummer's Ford, Harrenhal. There's a battle near Riverrun in the Battle of Camps. Robb Stark eventually starts warring in the west past the Golden Tooth, but when was the War of Five Kings really decided? When was it really over? And where was it decided? On the Trident, at the Twins, under a peace banner with Robb Stark's death. Now, let's go back even further into ancient history of Westeros. Let's start with the Andal invasion, and likely the most significant war in all of Westeros. In A Song of Ice and Fire, when Arya is traveling through the Riverlands with the Brotherhood Without Banners, she encounters the ghost of Highheart. Highheart in the Riverlands is a place said to be sacred to the Children of the Forest. The great hill called Highheart was especially holy to the First Men, as it had been to the Children of the Forest before them. Crowned by a grove of giant weirwoods, ancient as any that had been seen in the Seven Kingdoms, Highheart was still the abode of the children and their greenseers. When the Andal King Erig the Kinslayer surrounded the hill, the children emerged to defend it, calling down clouds of ravens and armies of wolves, or so the legend tells us. Yet neither tooth nor talon was a match for the steel axes of the Andals, who slaughtered the Greenseers, the Beast, and the First Men alike, and raised beside the Highheart a hill of corpses half again as high, or so the singers would have us believe. The Battle of Highheart was fought at Highheart in the Riverlands. The First Men fought beside the Children of the Forest and their Greenseers, and the Andals won, and now only ghosts haunt Highheart. But if we go back even further, we arrive at the Dawn Age, where the children and the First Men warred against each other before forming the Pact. The pact that ended these wars was made on the Isle of Faces in the God's Eye, and you guessed it, the Riverlands. The children of the forest fought as fiercely as the first men to defend their lives. Inexorably, the war ground on across generations, until at last the children understood that they could not win. The first men, perhaps tired of war, also wished to see an end to the fighting. The wisest of both races prevailed, and the chief heroes and rulers of both sides met upon an isle in the God's Eye to form the pact, giving up all lands of Westeros save for the deep forest. The children won from the first men the promise that they would no longer cut down the weirwoods. All the weirwoods of the isle on which the pact was forged were then carved with faces so the gods could witness the pact, and the Order of the Green Men was made afterward to tend to the weirwoods and protect the isle. Now, let's talk about the alleged first long night. Now, I actually believe that a lot of the timeline is wrong, and the pact was made after the White Walkers were made. The Andals were likely already there, but I won't dwell on that. The histories don't make sense, and riddles and rhymes and legends and lore, they all contradict each other. But there are some clues that we can examine to see just how south winter came to Westeros. In the book, The World of Ice and Fire, in the Long Night section, there's a tale that's told by Lomas Longstrider. Lomas Longstrider, in his Wonders Made by Man, recounts meeting descendants of the Rhoynar in the ruins of the festival city of Coleraine, who have tales of a darkness that made the Rhoyne dwindle and disappear, her waters frozen as far south as the joining of the Salharu. So if we look at this legend about the Rhoyne freezing really far south, then we know, at least during the first long night, that winter had almost reached Dorne and also Essos. But basically, if the long night reached the Salharu, then no doubt the long night reached the Trident. It is my belief that this event, known as the Hammer of the Waters, was actually the creation of the White Walkers, and the White Walkers were created in the Riverlands on the Isles of Faces. What we reference as the Hammer of the Waters is really just the after effect of using such dark magic to create the White Walkers. Finally, driven by desperation, the little people turn to sorcery and beseech their greenseers to stem the tide of these invaders. And so they did, gathering in their hundreds, some say, on the Isle of Faces, and calling on their old gods with song and prayer and grisly sacrifice. 1,000 captive men were fed to the weirwood, one version of the tale goes, whilst another claims the children used the blood of their own young, and the old gods stirred, and giants awoke in the earth, and all of Westeros shook and trembled. Great cracks appeared in the earth, and hills and mountains collapsed and were swallowed up. With all of that said, I don't see how this battle, this big battle for Dawn against the living and dead, could end anywhere else other than the Riverlands. Like, at this point, I don't see how we won't get to see the Isle of Faces and the Trident in season 8. Even if we say, well, Daenerys' House of the Undying Dream points to King's Landing being destroyed, and it's snowing there, and it's the Night King that's there in King's Landing destroying it. So even if we say that, there is only one way to King's Landing, and that's through the Riverlands. And I actually believe that this population line drop from season 7, this one.
How many people live here?
1 million, give or take.
That's more people than the entire North, crammed into that.
Is definitely foreshadowing the fact that the army of the living is going to have to, for sure, defeat the army of the dead before they fall on King's Landing, because there is no way the living can win against an army of that magnitude. I don't think it's going to boil down to just one battle. This war they're about to fight is the war of a lifetime, and just like every war we have seen before, I believe this war won't end in one battle, and the war will be decided in the Riverlands because history repeats. But what do you think? As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone that supports me on Patreon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join the Sweet Summer family. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.